We all love a good burger. I certainly do. But what makes the best burger? Because everyone's got a different answer. So I thought I would turn to some experts, some really good chefs, and see what they put in their best burger recipes, try it out, and tell you what I thought. I've got myself a whole bunch of meat. I've got myself a brand new meat grinder. Let's make some burgers. I'm going to be going through the burger recipes of Jamie Oliver, Gordon Ramsay and Heston Blumenthal and find out what these British chefs add to their burgers to make them spot on. One of the hardest things is getting to agree exactly what a good burger is. Is it just meat and a bun, sauce, nothing else? Does it have to be loaded up with vegetables, side dishes? What on earth goes into a great burger? It definitely all starts with the meat. All three chefs talk about different blends of meat. So I've picked up some brisket, some beef short rib and some chuck steak. We're going to blend these in different ratios according to their methods and figure out which one is the best. None of these chefs got where they are today without having a good bunch of recipes behind them. And in fact, you can find lots of recipes for burgers for all these chefs. Jamie, I counted 4 or 5. Gordon, another 5 or 6. Heston, a couple to himself. So I've picked ones that I think really typify their style. Let's start with Gordon Ramsay's. His is actually the simplest and is based on one that he serves at his Bread Street kitchen restaurants. For all my recipes today, I'm going to be using this meat grinder from FIMEI, who kindly sent me one to give it a try. I've never used a meat grinder before, and obviously not theirs, so I'm intrigued to know how it performs and exactly how best to use it. I've given it a wash and a scrub and put it together, read the instructions, think I know what's going on, so let's give it a try. First, we need to weigh up some meat for Gordon's. Gordon calls for 200 grams of short rib, 200 grams of chuck, 200 grams of brisket. Gordon also calls for extra fat to be added, so I'm going to chuck in some beef dripping. So we've got a whole bunch of meat now, and let's get grinding. I think this is going to make a lot of noise. Now Gordon doesn't specify how large the grind is. This grinder comes with 3 different grind settings, so I'm just going to pick the middle one. I think it's about 5 mil according to the book. There we go, that's our 600 gram of beef minced. We've not been advised to season it at all, so we season it just before cooking. So let's see how that turns out. I'm going to turn it now into patties. So Gordo says turn it into 4 balls. So I'm going to loosely mix it to make sure we've got the different cuts all playing together. This is going to make a 150 gram burger patty uncooked. So we lose what, 20% of that cooking maybe? 10 to 20%. So let's try and get 150 on 5-3, that'll do. I'm just pressing them together. I'm not, mixing them, just literally pressing them into a sphere. I'm just going to leave those to rest for 15 minutes at room temp. His instructions. I thought you would put them in the fridge actually, but there you go. And then we'll try them. My beef burgers have had time to rest. I've just squished them in some greaseproof paper. Not a lot of precision in the instructions. I'm going with the St. Pierre seeded brioche bun for all of these so that we can compare just the meat and the condiments they serve them with. So let's get the beef on and see how it comes out. So now we're going to fry our burger patties. Got a pan over a pretty high heat. I'm going to season the burgers with salt and pepper on both sides. Add a little oil to the pan, and then after about 3 minutes on one side, I'll turn it over and then carry on cooking. My previously toasted bun, topped with the patty, a little coleslaw, that's a new one on me, gherkin, tomato, lettuce, and finally cheese slice. The recipe calls for Monterey Jack, incredibly difficult to find in the UK. This is just a standard Tesco cheese slice. And there's no other sauce in this bad boy, which is unusual. No ketchup or anything. To be fair, the recipe does say, experiment with toppings, but I'm doing it exactly as suggested. Let's have a look down the middle. Okay, enough of that. Let's try it. Unhook my jaw. The beef is nice. My concern would be about the lack of seasoning. I think that is true here. It doesn't have that depth of seasoning because you're adding it right at the last minute. Half of it is probably still in the frying pan. It's a nice texture. It's loose enough that it falls apart in your mouth, but you've still got a nice satisfying chew to it. The vegetables are nice and fresh, the salad. The coleslaw is a good choice. If you go easy on it, for me personally, everyone's different, right? Everyone likes different things. Yeah, it's quite a no-nonsense burger. I'm surprised there's no other sauce in it. And the quite loose texture being left on the counter just to sort itself out means that it's a little difficult to work with, but it's satisfying all the same. Next up then, Jamie Oliver's burger, and I've taken, and there's whole bunches of them you can find on his website, but I've gone for one from Comfort Food, and that is, in this, it's known as the Insanity Burger. This one just uses chuck steak for the burger, and then we rest it in the fridge. If you recall, Gordon's burger was about 150 grams. Jamie calls for a 200 gram burger. So pretty much a quarter pounder, a little bit shy. Again, we are conspicuously unseasoned at this point. I thought we'd be seasoning more throughout the mixture so that you get flavour spread throughout the burger, but let's go with it. Let's trust the process, and let's see what these are like when they're cooked. Just before frying, I'm going to spread with a little oil, add salt and pepper, add to a very hot pan. You'll also notice I've got some bacon frying in the next pan along. I'm going to allow 3 or 4 minutes per side. One of Jamie's ideas is to spread them with mustard and just give them a good layer. And once they're cooked on one side, I'll also put mustard on the other, transfer the bacon, and then add a red Leicester cheese slice. Turn off the heat and just leave them for about a minute so the cheese softens. I'm going to use the bacon pan to fry off the buns. Jamie also suggests a burger sauce, which is mayo, ketchup, some chipotle sauce, Worcester sauce, and a little slug of bourbon. Combined with shredded lettuce for a tasty and savoury burger sauce. And so our burger there is burger sauce, beef, cheese, red onions, and pickles. Here goes. Very nice. I can taste the mustard coming through. The bacon is also really strong. The beef flavour is quite nice, though one-dimensional. Again, low on seasoning, I would say. The little crunchy burger sauce at the bottom is tasty and interesting. That's good fun. It's very messy. I'm going to need a bath after this. And finally, we're on to Heston Blumenthal's burger from his In Search of Perfection series. Now, I remember watching this back in 2007. I was absolutely fascinated by the trips he took to try and research into this, and I would say the way we look at beef burgers has moved on since then, but it's still interesting to go and look. Now, he uses the same combination of meats as Gordon, that is chuck, brisket and short rib, but of course being Heston in a very different way. I've already started this off. A few hours ago I chopped up some chuck steak and I've salted it, and that's just been resting in the fridge for a few hours. I've now got some short rib and brisket ready to be minced. This is going to be minced with a fine grind. Then going to add the chuck back in on a coarse grind, so you get some thicker pieces of chuck to finer pieces of the brisket and short rib. Fascinated to see what difference it does. Now, full disclosure with this recipe. The Full Perfection recipe covers making the bun, making the cheese, making a tomato ferment, ketchup, and lots of other bits and bobs besides. I'm going to be blunt, I'm not going to do all those stages. Not only do I just not have time, I've looked at write-ups from other people like J. Kenji Lopez Alt from the In Search of Heston blog, and they've all said it's just not worthwhile. Even Andy Cook says making your own cheese slices is irritating. I'm just going to concentrate on the beef patty and assemble the ingredients the way he suggests it. Let's grind up these meats. So there's all my finely ground brisket, hello, and short rib. Now I'm going to combine it back with the chuck steak on a coarser grind. That's going to be my final mix. So switching up to a coarse blade. I've halved Heston's recipe, which is supposed to serve 8, but as you can see, it's got an absolute mountain of meat. So I think here I'm going to deviate slightly from the recipe. That fine already ground mince is clagging up the machine. So I'm going to pick out the chuck and grind it through here and then tumble it by hand. It's not quite what Heston was after. And in fact, he makes a big deal about making sure all the strands go in the right direction, but I think we're going to be okay. I think we'll get the idea. So I'm just going to switch to grinding out the chuck by itself. This is an example which is not about equipment, but it's about people. You know, a couple of people around to help with this would help. So, I'm now going to attempt to wrap this into a sausage. I might have underestimated the amount of cling film. I think I have. Not a bad start. I've got a few air pockets, so just going to make tiny holes so that the air can be squeezed out of there. Is while that salted meat sits in the fridge, a couple of things happen. The salt kind of breaks the meat down slightly and reforms it. Equally, the fat in the meat firming up. Right, that's going in the fridge. Let's see what happens. And while we wait for those burgers to chill, I just want to say thanks to all the channel members. They're in a lovely list down there, and they really do help keep the channel running. And if you want to become a member and get exclusive videos I don't publish anywhere else, follow the links down below to join for as little as 99p a month. So this grinder, as I said earlier, provided by FIMEI. Thank you very much for sending this for me to review, and they haven't. They've been quite clear. I've been able to say whatever I want about it. It's my first time using a grinder, so I don't have a basis for comparison, but it's done what it's supposed to do. It's ground the meat. You've heard it go on. It also has a reverse function, so if something's getting stuck, you can drag it back through the other way. A range of grinding discs. Comes with accessories for making cookies and stuffing sausages, which are things I'm keen to try, but that's for another day. Yeah, so it's worked fine. It's got a locking pin so that this arm won't come out without pressing another button, which is good for safety. What I will say is it's kind of thin and flimsy feeling. This is a very lightweight material, but it is sturdy enough, clearly, to do the job. But that does mean it's a little easier to put away. It's got suction cups on the bottom, so it's not going to run away with you. And having a range of discs has been fun to play with. Some bits of it are a bit of a pain to clean. This extruder, that's not what it's called, is it? But this kind of whirly corkscrew thing that forces the meat the right way is a bit of a pain to clean. I'd recommend getting a little brush or an old toothbrush to get into the nooks and crannies. Some of these elements can't be dishwashed, which is a shame. So soak them in hot water, give them a good brush. This tube as well, very difficult to get all the bits out. So I don't imagine that's unique to this model. Presumably lots of them are quite a pain to clean. But I've been very impressed with it. If you want to give it a go, I've put a link down in the description. That'll be an affiliate link down there, which means if you make any purchases, I'll get a small amount back from it at no extra cost to you. Thanks for supporting the channel. So let's cook and serve Heston's Perfection Burger. You can see this log of meat has rested in the fridge. It's nice and tight now. I reshaped it a little bit, got it a little bit more compact. Now let's make some slices. You can see my condiments are ready to go, so that it's basically an assembly job once it's cooked. So let's slice up a burger. See the dense pockets of meat, the coarse and the fine. Lovely, about 150 grams, which is exactly what Heston suggests. Let's get this on to cook. So again, a little oil in a very hot pan, and I'm adding that directly to the hot oil. This burger, having rested in the fridge, is much more inclined to stay where it is and not break apart. Heston recommends putting that on until it reaches 52 degrees internally, and then taking off to rest while you assemble everything. And the assembly is a burger, some shredded lettuce, some tomato, onion blanched for 30 seconds in hot water, a pickle, comté melted on top, ketchup, mayo, and there you have it. So here's Heston's burger, which took, as always with Heston recipes, a little bit longer than all the others, but let's see if it was worth it. Let's get a cut down the middle first, have a good look inside. Again, a glistening medium rare, I would say even slightly rare in the middle. That is a very beefy burger. If you remember with that one, the chuck was pre-salted, and those slightly larger pieces are really interesting texture-wise, so it's not all completely uniform. The condiments are, you know, good, fresh, interesting, and really do make it a burger worth trying. So tasty, and that refrigeration means that it's held its shape overnight, and therefore in the pan it was more happy to stick together and not kind of coming apart the way Gordon's was, for example. That's really interesting. So 3 burger recipes there, and what have I actually learned? Well, it's helped inform me exactly what I want out of a burger. I really like Heston's mix of coarse chuck that has been salted, and then your rib and brisket ground finer, then tumbled all together. I would also like to add some black pepper. Gordon was the only one who advocated some black pepper. I like a little hit of pepper every now and then when I'm eating my burger. 2 of the recipes advocating putting the cheese on the bread, which is a choice, but I think actually dampens the flavour of the cheese. When it interacts with the burger, that's when it gets really interesting. You're effectively seasoning that burger another way. That's how I would do it next time. Also, basting the burger, much like Jamie did, is another interesting technique, adding a crust, a glaze. So, my perfect burger. Heston's chuck, ground coarsely and salted, rib and brisket, ground finely, combined together, wrapped into a shape and refrigerated for a few hours, preferably overnight. Salt and black pepper. Whilst cooking, get some bacon on the go, toast your buns in that bacon fat. Condiments are a very personal thing, but I like that freshness that lettuce brings, and I just like ketchup. It's a great condiment for a burger for a reason. It's a classic for a reason. I also quite like slightly poached onion because it takes that raw edge off it, which is really tasty for me. And then, as boring as it is, I quite like what we would call an American cheese slice, a plasticky cheese slice. Tesco do a really good one. They're mature cheese slice. It's got plenty of flavour, but bends really easily and coats a burger. That's how I'd make my perfect burger. What's yours? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time.